Camilla screams after Princess Anne destroys her son's royal dream. Forever, Buckingham Palace was unusually quiet that morning. Not silent, just off. The kind of hush that falls over a room when something big is about to go down. And everyone feels it, but no one dares to say it out loud. In the middle of it all, Princess Anne stood in her private quarters, not pacing or panicking, just standing still, looking out over the palace gardens. Her hand rested on a small leather briefcase. Inside it, a weapon more powerful than any royal decree. Not a sword, not a crown, a recording. One that could tear apart the illusion Camilla had spent years building. But to understand how it all got to this point, you've got to rewind just a bit. Camilla had been playing the long game. Ever since stepping into the spotlight as queen consort, she'd managed to rebrand herself. Gone was the old controversy, the whispered disapproval. She was graceful now, calculated, respected, and dangerous. Her goal wasn't just to solidify her own position, it was to carve a place in the monarchy for her son Tom Parker. BS. The BS alone stirred smirks among the staff, but Camilla didn't care. BS built morality. With a she was going to rewrite history if she had to. She wanted Tom in that front row, sitting in royal chairs, shaking hands on camera, looking every bit the future of the crown, even though he had no royal blood whatsoever. And she almost pulled it off. It started small, a random media article here and there, praising Tom's charity appearances. Then came the social media clips of him speaking at modern monarchy panels, followed by full-page spreads painting him as the people's choice for the future. Most people didn't even question it. He was just there, in the photos, in the interviews, next to Camilla at events, slowly, subtly, like a shadow inching toward the spotlight, until Westminster Abbey. That memorial service was supposed to honor fallen veterans, a dignified, solemn occasion, the kind where every royal appearance is symbolic, not just ceremonial. Anne showed up in full form, sharp posture, minimal flair, a living emblem of everything the monarchy stood for. And when she reached her designated seat in the front row, engraved with the royal crest she'd earned through decades of loyalty and sacrifice, she stopped cold. Tom was already sitting in it. He wasn't just occupying the chair, he was dressed like he belonged there. Bespoke black suit, polished shoes, an air of practiced humility. But Anne saw through it instantly. This wasn't an accident, it was a move. A message, a claim. The usher, almost apologetically, motioned for her to sit in the second row. Anne didn't react, at least not outwardly. She sat quietly, her back rigid, hands folded. But inside, something snapped. It wasn't just the insult, it was the audacity. Camilla had used this sacred event to test how far she could push her plan. And Tom, he didn't even flinch. He sat through the entire ceremony like he was born for it. The cameras knew where to focus. The media coverage afterward was no coincidence. Close-ups of Camilla and Tom, headlines about the new face of the monarchy. Anne was barely visible in the frames. But that wasn't the end. Because later that week, Anne received a message. A short one. Just a name and a location. Highgrove. William wanted to talk. And when she arrived, he handed her that little USB stick, the one now resting in the briefcase beside her. What was on it? Camilla's voice, clear, ruthless, caught mid-conspiracy, strategizing with her PR team and Tom about removing Anne from the spotlight and installing her son as the face of the crown. Anne didn't explode. She didn't scream. She listened. Then she stood, took the drive, and said one thing. It's time they remembered who I am. The royal council chamber was packed, and the air inside was thick with tension. Everyone was there, King Charles seated at the head of the long mahogany table, William to his right, Camilla sitting with a carefully composed expression, and the rest of the senior royals and long-standing advisors flanking both sides. The hushed murmur that usually preceded these meetings had vanished. Every glance shifted to Princess Anne as she walked in, briefcase in hand, eyes calm but resolute. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She walked to the center of the room, set the briefcase down, and clicked it open. Inside was the black USB. She picked it up and spoke, her voice cutting through the silence. This is not a private matter. It's about the integrity of the crown. Charles looked uneasy. Camilla shifted, the first sign of discomfort cracking through her usual poise. William, tense but ready, kept his eyes forward. Anne plugged the USB into the laptop, and within seconds, Camilla's voice filled the room. Cut back Anne's presence in the media. She's outdated, not fitting anymore. Tom's voice followed, hesitant but clearly complicit, and then Camilla again, colder this time. Let the media handle it. Just smile for the camera. Jill, fade from sight. The moment the audio ended, no one said a word. For a full 5 seconds, the silence was absolute. Then the whisper started, soft, unsure. Charles pressed his lips together, eyes heavy with something between embarrassment and disbelief. Camilla finally stood, her voice brittle. This is a fabrication, a trap. Anyone could have doctored that. Anne didn't blink. It was recorded by Harold, one of the palace's oldest servants. He risked everything. There are no edits, no manipulation. This is your voice, your plan. William stepped in. We can verify the audio's authenticity if needed, but deep down, everyone here already knows it's real. The room shifted. Advisors exchanged looks, expressions tightening. No one rushed to Camilla's defense, and she saw it, the moment of isolation. For all her years of scheming, she was suddenly alone. Charles sighed and leaned back in his chair. We can't ignore what we just heard. This goes beyond family. It affects public trust. Anne nodded. I'm not here to demand punishment. I'm here to restore order. William straightened his spine. I propose the creation of a 3-person supervisory council to oversee all royal communications. Myself, Princess Anne, and a vetted independent media advisor. From now on, no single person can manipulate the press in favor of any individual. Someone from the far end of the table spoke up. And what of Tom Parker? Anne answered before anyone else could. He holds no royal blood. He will no longer attend or appear in official royal events. That is not personal, it is protocol. Camilla's eyes burned, her hands shaking slightly under the table. You're casting my son out, publicly humiliating me. No. Anne said flatly. You did that all on your own. The vote was called. One by one, the members raised their hands. The outcome was clear. An overwhelming majority in favor of restructuring media control and removing Tom from all official roles. Camilla had lost. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat still, staring ahead, her face frozen in place while her entire house of cards collapsed around her. And Anne? She didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She simply collected the USB, gave a brief nod to the room, and walked out. Outside, the clouds had broken slightly. A beam of sun cut through the gray, landing square on the palace steps, and walked straight through it, head high as if even the sky knew whose side it was on. Clarence's house felt like a museum frozen in time. No more late-night meetings, no whispered strategy sessions in the velvet-draped drawing room. Camilla sat in the same high-backed chair by the window every day, staring out at the garden with the kind of stillness that made the staff uneasy. The power she once wielded with a glance had evaporated. Her grip on the media was gone. Her son, once posed as the monarchy's modern future, was now a footnote. There were no calls for interviews, no gala invites, no honored seats. Tom Parker BS had taken the blow harder than he showed. He stopped dressing up, stopped smiling for the cameras that no longer pointed his way. He kept to himself, wandering the halls like a guest in a house that had already forgotten his name. He didn't blame his mother, not exactly, but he also couldn't ignore the truth. She had built his throne out of air, and now it had vanished. Meanwhile, something had shifted across the kingdom. The press, once subtly influenced by Camilla's back channels, now buzzed with headlines celebrating stability, heritage, and bloodline. Public opinion didn't just swing, it surged. Commentators praised the council's new structure, editorials applauded the move to reinforce tradition, but most of all they focused on one name, Princess Anne. The next royal event was the opening of the National Museum at Windsor, a symbolic occasion chosen purposefully to be the first time Anne stepped into the spotlight since the council's vote. Thousands lined the streets, flags waved, cameras zoomed. The anticipation was thick. Anne arrived in a navy blue coat, her medals gleaming. She walked with her signature poise, no fanfare, no flash, just raw presence. William stood at her side, offering a silent nod as they entered the grand hall. Inside, the honored seats were once again arranged with meticulous care, and this time, no surprises. Anne's name was etched clearly on the plaque at the front. As she took her place beside William, the crowd erupted. The applause was long, genuine, and thunderous. Cameras captured her face, every wrinkle lit like a crown of honor. She didn't wave, she didn't grin, she just sat, proud, composed, immovable. The embodiment of everything the monarchy had been built upon, the broadcast looped her entrance all day. Headlines bloomed like flowers. Anne restores dignity to the crown. A nation backs its true bloodline. Loyalty never fades. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a coronation without a crown. At Clarence House, Camilla watched it unfold on a massive flat screen. She didn't blink, didn't move, just watched. And when Tom entered the room and saw the image of Anne seated where he once dared to sit, he paused. "Mother," he said softly, "we never belonged there." Camilla turned away, her face heavy with defeat. She had played every card, bent every rule, rewrote the script of the monarchy behind closed doors, but in the end, none of it mattered. She had tried to bypass blood with branding, swap legacy for headlines, and lost it all. Not because Anne outmaneuvered her, but because Anne never had to play games to begin with. Across the palace courtyards, a light breeze stirred fallen leaves. Anne stood before a crowd of young cadets, speaking not of power or legacy, but of duty. She ended her speech with a single line that echoed long after. Titles fade, but character never does. The audience applauded again, not because it was polite, but because it was deserved. And somewhere in the shadows of Clarence House, Camilla closed her eyes and finally understood. The throne isn't something you climb toward, it's something you earn.